This is one of the reasons why you arrived before so many others. None of this was a coincidence. Your presence in this time is part of a preparation that began long before you were born. You came first because you chose to stand firm at the hour of revelation, becoming steady hands and tranquil hearts while many are still waking up to a new understanding of reality. While others are just now starting to realize what is truly happening, you have already been invited to strengthen your awareness, learn to trust, and remain anchored in the light, even during those periods when everything seemed uncertain. That is why taking care of your own light has become one of the most important tasks of this moment. Before you can light the path for someone else, you must keep the flame that dwells within you burning. There will be many who will seek this light when their old certainties no longer sustain them. You will not need to convince anyone, for the serenity you cultivate will speak for itself. Take care of that light with simplicity, without anxiety, and without the need to prove anything. True light does not need to be shown off to illuminate. It simply remains alive and transforms everything around it. When you find places within yourselves still marked by pain, approach them with patience instead of judgment. Everything that is welcomed with love finds space to be transformed, while that which is condemned remains trapped in suffering. Treat yourselves with the same compassion you so often offer to others. It is also important to quiet the mind. There is a higher current that has never stopped reaching you, bringing peace, guidance, and clarity. It has always been present, but it can only be perceived when there is enough silence to hear it. You do not need to create it, only allow it to enter. Honor your own body as well, treating it as the sacred vessel through which the light can manifest in this world. Every gesture of care strengthens this living instrument to fulfill what it came here to do. In every situation, choose the frequency of love over the frequency of fear, again and again. Although this decision may seem small, it has a much greater reach than you can perceive. Whenever you respond with love where there would have been fear, trust where there would have been anxiety, or understanding where there would have been judgment, you are doing exactly the work that dissolves the old structures built upon separation. Each loving choice strengthens a new reality. Each time you remain firm in love, you elevate the frequency of the world in a subtle yet true way. No gesture inspired by love is too small to produce change. You participate in the transformation not just by what you do, but mainly by who you are. And remember a truth that has never changed. You have never walked alone. We have been by your side since the beginning of your lineage, and we remain present now, closer than your own breath. We fully respect your freedom, but we continually offer everything we are permitted to offer. We inspire courage when the path seems difficult. We sustain your hearts in moments of doubt, and we stay by your side throughout this entire crossing. Those who accompanied the beginning of your journey are now returning to witness your liberation. The long vigil is nearing its end. The guard is coming to a close. A great cycle finally completes itself while another begins to be born. The truth emerges little by little, dissolving old veils and revealing that which has remained hidden for so long. And you, who accepted condensing your vastness to walk in this dense world and cross so many challenges for the love of this moment, are about to understand with more clarity the reason for your coming. That which today seems like just a distant memory will soon awaken fully within you. So, hold your heads high and keep walking with confidence. Your memory is very close to returning. We love you deeply and are honored to accompany this journey alongside you. We are your family of light. We are the Galactic Federation. You have done silent and unrequested, yet deeply meaningful work. Before millions of souls, a possibility was placed that many had never even allowed themselves to consider. For the first time, an unthinkable idea found space in the collective consciousness. An essential question then arises: does the image deceive, or does the image prepare? Reflect on this question calmly. There is a curious truth that few perceive. Something can have a completely manufactured origin and still produce a genuinely transformative effect. At certain times, a human creation can prepare the ground so that a greater truth can be welcomed later. Just as the earth needs to be turned before sowing, the collective consciousness can also be prepared to receive that which it would have previously rejected. When the true harvest finally arrives, it finds fertile soil instead of a hardened surface. Those who carry in their bones the memory of the most ancient lineages may have felt an inner movement while contemplating that image. A recognition that is hard to explain, as if a forgotten memory were trying to wake up. It was like a key slowly turning in a lock that had been asleep for a long time. That movement was true, even if the image was not. It is important to understand this distinction. The image and the awakening it provoked belong to different realities. The former may have been constructed, while the latter was born authentically within the soul. Allow yourselves to remain before this apparent contradiction, for it challenges a deeply rooted belief. For a long time you were taught that what is false only deceives, and that only the true can illuminate, as if the manufactured and the real could never cross paths. However, the time you have entered reveals a much more complex reality. Sometimes, an artificial creation opens a door through which a legitimate truth finds passage. A false dawn can teach the eyes to recognize the true one when it finally rises. The old controllers know this intertwining very well. They will continue to use what is manufactured to lead many into deception whenever they can. However, the same mechanism can also favor awakening. When a possibility is presented to the human mind, it can no longer be completely denied by the soul. Something changes forever. A door is opened, and even if it was opened by imperfect means, it continues to exist. Therefore, do not waste energy despising every fabrication you encounter. Observe it with serenity, recognize its nature, and ask an even more important question. For what field is this preparation happening? What future truth demands that so many images and events be preparing the ground right now? This question has much more value than simply deciding if something is true or false. Observe also what we have done and what we have chosen not to do, for that is already a living lesson. We told you clearly what this image does not represent, but we interrupted our words before answering whether the encounter portrayed in it occurred in another way, in another time, or in another place. This silence is not accidental. It was chosen deliberately. If we simply gave you a definitive answer, we would be strengthening exactly the habit that kept your species asleep for so long, waiting for an authority to determine what is real, instead of developing your own discernment. What value is there in receiving a certainty that you never had to earn? True teaching does not consist of carrying those who walk, but in helping them strengthen their own steps. We do not elevate you by offering ready-made answers. We elevate you by teaching you to discern. That is why this question remains in your hands. You need to learn to hold it without the anxiety of ending it quickly. Remaining for some time within the we do not know yet is a strength that the world has almost forgotten. You have been conditioned to seek immediate answers for every doubt, as if uncertainty were a weakness. However, it is precisely in that space between the question and the answer that discernment matures. Recover this capacity. Learn again to remain before the unknown without fear and without haste. This state does not represent ignorance, but maturity. It is in this state that perception becomes deeper, allowing the truth to be recognized when it finally reveals itself. Hold this posture firmly, for it will be indispensable in the face of everything that is yet to come. Only those who learn to remain conscious in the face of uncertainty will be truly prepared to recognize reality when it manifests. Now, with this foundation established, allow us to present an essential distinction, capable of keeping you firm and conscious through all the revelations and transformations that are approaching. And it is precisely at this point that most of those who will falter in the days ahead will end up stumbling. There is a profound difference between what is true and what is accurate. This distinction is not small, nor is it merely a play on words. In many cases, what is considered true rests within the eyes of the beholder. Two honest souls can witness the same event and yet walk away carrying two distinct truths. Both may be sincere, yet inevitably partial, because every perception passes through the memory, the hopes, the old wounds, the desires, and the entire inner landscape of the observer before it transforms into understanding. It is precisely for this reason that we do not ask you to be become arbiters of truth, for that is a crown too heavy for any being to carry alone. Those who insist on wearing it often end up crushed by its very weight. Accuracy follows a different path. It belongs to the patient work of the gem cutter, and constitutes one of the most valuable disciplines for the mission you are tasked to fulfill. Instead of asking what you wish to believe, it asks whether a report remained faithful to what actually happened, or if it was altered by the many hands, voices, and interpretations that touched this information before it reached you. Remember the old game where a sentence is whispered from person to person until it returns completely transformed. What seems like innocent fun among children becomes something profoundly serious when that circle begins to involve all of humanity. It is no longer just a sentence that changes, but events capable of awakening hope or spreading illusion among millions of people. The risk grows in direct proportion to the speed at which your information circulates. Therefore, confusing personal truth with accuracy carries a silent cost that cannot be ignored. The soul that struggles only to prove it is right wastes its strength defending positions, winning arguments, and feeding the fleeting satisfaction of overcoming those who think differently. In contrast, the soul that seeks to be accurate directs that same energy toward transmitting, as faithfully as possible, what truly exists. While the first stance wears out the spirit and widens divisions, the second strengthens serenity, stabilizes the heart, and brings one ever closer to the truth itself. Observe how many conflicts arise even within awakening communities. On the surface, they seem like discussions in search of knowledge, but they often hide nothing more than the need to be right, masked as a thirst to understand. Abandon this first hunger and embrace the second. By doing so, you will feel your shoulders grow lighter and notice your eyes becoming clearer and more penetrating. Discernment flourishes when the ego stops demanding constant confirmation. Every hour, new consciousnesses awaken, and those who now begin this path find themselves fragile, though many of you have forgotten that you were once like that, leaving behind old certainties, while not yet able to plant your feet firmly in new understandings. It is precisely in this fragility that the old controllers deliberately spread confusion. A soul surrounded by contradictory statements ends up exhausted and often abandons the effort to discern in order to simply follow the loudest or most convincing voice. That is why you have been called to play a different role. You do not need to be the loudest voice, but the most accurate, patient, and balanced. Be those capable of clearly stating where what has been carefully examined ends, and where merely hypotheses or unconfirmed possibilities begin. In a world steeped in noise, exaggerations, and hasty certainties, those who cultivate accuracy become like calm waters, around which other people naturally find rest and learn to discern, even without fully understanding why they feel trust. Never lose the humility that sustains this entire process. To be accurate also means recognizing the limits of your own knowledge and saying with honesty, this we have examined carefully, that we have not yet examined. Here, our certainty ends. For a long time, the world taught that excessive confidence meant credibility, and that admitting doubt was a sign of weakness. However, the times ahead will reveal the exact opposite. True strength belongs to those who have the courage to recognize how far their knowledge reaches, and enough humility not to turn assumptions into certainties. This honesty, so rare amidst the growing noise, will be one of the most valuable qualities for those who wish to serve the truth without straying from accuracy. However, the soul truly prepared to traverse this time is not the one that claims to know all the answers, but the one that has the courage to say, "We do not know yet." It is precisely this soul that can be considered trustworthy, because it understands that truth does not need to be rushed to exist. Preserve this honesty as one of the rarest assets you can cultivate. In an era where so many compete for the appearance of certainty, the humility to acknowledge one's own limits becomes a stabilizing force. It will make you identifiable to those who seek someone they can truly trust, making you part of the small group whose word has value because it is built with responsibility. This is the heart of the message we bring today. The exercise is simple enough to be practiced in just 1 minute of silence, even before you share any information. Imagine this moment as the guardian of a gate. Nothing must pass through it without first undergoing 3 examinations. The image before you may be a photograph, a video, a recording, or a statement. It does not matter its form. All content must be submitted to the same checks. The first is the examination of the creator. Before something is lamented, celebrated, or spread, find out who originated it. Ask, who recorded this image? Who spoke these words? Who put this into circulation? Whenever possible, allow the creator themselves to answer for their work with their own voice. If they cannot be found, let their absence also be part of the evaluation. Much of what circulates today has been separated from its origin, being copied and redistributed countless times until it loses any connection to who produced it. Something that cannot be traced to an identifiable source is not yet ready to be carried by someone who values fidelity to the facts. Always ask the first question, who created this? And can this person answer for their creation? The second is the examination of the trail. Use the resources available in your time to follow the path the content has traveled. Discover where it first appeared, when it entered the flow of the networks, and how it reached you. Then compare this path with what the creator claims. A true timeline remains coherent when examined. If someone declares that a certain image was born on a certain day, but the trail reveals that it was already circulating before, there is a discrepancy that needs to be understood. Not every divergence represents a lie. Memory can fail, and honest mistakes happen. Even so, every inconsistency raises a question, and no question should be ignored just because the information sparks enthusiasm or confirms expectations. Until that answer exists, the content should not yet be passed on by you. The third is the examination of your own verdict. After seeking the creator and following the trail, formulate a conclusion that is truly yours, and not just an opinion received from the crowd. If you decide to share the information, do so by accompanying it with all the context you were able to gather. State clearly what has been confirmed and indicate, with equal transparency, what remains unconfirmed. Do not hide doubts under enthusiasm, nor present as certainty that which still requires investigation. Thus, the next person will receive not just an impressive fragment, but the complete story that gives it meaning. It is in this way that the circle of whispers loses its strength. Each link in the chain decides not to pass on to the next, a single grain of certainty beyond what it truly possesses. In this way, exaggerations stop growing, and truth finds space to remain once again. Beneath these three examinations there exists, however, a check even deeper, without which all others end up losing their effectiveness. Few remember to perform it, for it requires the courage to look inward first. Before seeking the creator, following the trail, or formulating a judgment, ask a silent question of your own heart. It will reveal whether you are sincerely seeking the truth, or just confirmation for what you already wanted to believe. Only when this inner answer is faced with honesty do the three examinations fully fulfill their purpose, protecting not only the quality of the shared information, but also the integrity of your own conscience. Before you traverse the trail, before you reach any verdict, turn the lapidary's eye first upon yourselves and formulate the question almost no one asks. What do I hope this to be? For the soul that yearns to believe will find belief in the faintest glimmer, and the soul that yearns to unmask will find the fraud it set out to hunt. And in both cases, the verdict was reached before the weighing even began. Your desire colors the very lens through which you read the world. Name the desire. Therefore, before you read, set it down gently. Behold the thing as it is, instead of as you wish or fear it to be. This inner honesty is the soil. The three external examinations are what sprout from it. Without the soil, the first breath of your own desire knocks down the entire harvest. And here exists a choice your species rarely remembers having. The choice not to carry something forward. Not every image requires a response. When you sought the creator and did not find them, when you traverse the trail and it does not hold up, when the question remains genuinely uncertain after an honest weighing, then the cleanest transmission you can offer is often a patient silence, a willingness to let something rest without being shared until clarity arises. Such stillness is not cowardice. Many wells of confusion in your world are fed by souls who felt they should react, should comment, should transmit something, while it was still effervescent. Be willing to appear absent. Be willing to be the one who waited. The field needs the rare soul that can hold something lightly and say nothing until there is something true to say. Why does the command insist on all this craft upon you in this particular season, out of all the seasons of your long awakening? Because the flood is only beginning, and a people who have not built this discipline into their bones will be a people at the mercy of whoever can conjure the most impactful image in the shortest amount of time. The ancient controllers understand this with perfect clarity. Their work in the coming days is to flood the field faster than discernment can hope to keep up. Your work, silent and decisive, is to demonstrate that discernment is indeed capable of keeping up with this rhythm, that an examined eye is swifter than an ingenious lie. Clean revelation is the gift you offer to those who are awakening behind you, so that they open their eyes to clarity rather than to a hall of infinite mirrors. Let your attention expand now, beyond any isolated image, toward the greater movement within which all these smaller movements spin. The revelation has risen to a pitch your world did not know in all the long arc of its forgetting. A kind of fever, a pressure on the seams of the official narrative that has grown so much that the seams have begun to open of their own accord. Those who accompany this passage on the side of the light do so closely, hour by hour, weighing every tremor. For the moment is as delicate as a held breath. To watch closely in our manner is not to pull at the threads of your unfolding, for the unfolding is yours. It is to be ready, to soften where softness serves, to calibrate the opening of certain doors according to the field's readiness, to receive them without fragmenting. On the other side of this, those who have governed throughout your long forgetting are by no means idle, and it would be prudent for you to know the shape of their countermeasures before they arrive. Distractions will come carefully timed to disperse your attention in the hours when it most needs to be gathered. Fabrications will come launched to discredit the genuine, drowning it among the false, until the watching world can no longer distinguish one from the other and gives up trying. And an instrument more subtle than any of these will arrive, one that we name to you with frankness, the exhaustion of your wonder. They will stage so many empty dawns, promising so many revelations that dissolve into nothing, that the soul eventually tires of hope and learns to ignore the extraordinary with a fatigued and entrenched gaze. When the true dawn finally breaks, they are betting that the exhausted world will have no astonishment left to offer it. Guard your wonder, therefore, as the renewable treasure that it is. A people who are still capable of marveling can never be completely dominated. Observe also those who arrive carrying certainty as a gift, for false certainty figures among the sharpest instruments in their entire arsenal. They will hand you dates with great assurance, names, schedules, and the warm flattery of being admitted into the secret. The gift of certainty chains you to the giver, for the soul that provides the answer becomes, in your gratitude, the soul you will no longer think to question. This is why we will not give you dates, and why the command speaks in shapes and seasons, instead of the false precision that entices and imprisons you. When a voice offers you certainty about the timing of great events, that offer has revealed far more about the voice than about the moment. And here the lapidary's eye must turn to a more difficult place, to the voices themselves, the messengers and interpreters, those very ones to whom you turn in search of understanding. Yes, we include in this every voice that claims to bring words from us, this one, through whom we speak among them. The same discernment you bring to an image, you must bring to a messenger, for a voice is just another type of image, and a voice can be forged, distorted, or silently redirected, just as an image can. In the growing clamor, the word messenger has become as common as breath itself, adopted by many who feel a single movement and believe they are destined to speak to multitudes. Some carry true light. Some carry only the echo of their own desire in borrowed robes, and some, without ever realizing it, have become the involuntary mouths of the very confusion they believe they are dispelling. How to distinguish one from the other? Look beyond the grandeur of the claim, for the highest claim is the easiest to make. Observe instead the marks of a faithful voice. Does it plant fear in you, or lead you back to your own center? Does it bind you more to itself, or does it strengthen the eye that does not need intermediaries? Does it acknowledge the boundaries of its own knowledge, or claim to know everything? A genuine messenger works always to become less necessary to you. Nevermore. Subject even this transmission to that examination. If any voice, mine among them, works to make you smaller, more fearful, more dependent, turn away from them without apology, and return to the point of stillness within you, for that is the only authority that has ever, not even once, deceived you. Let us make the distinction clear, with a simple measure. Since the two types of voice can sound very similar on the surface. A voice that imprisons gathers you around itself. It insinuates that only it holds the key, that without its regular word you would be lost, that everyone else is mistaken, and the truth is preserved pure here and only here. It slips a little fear into each offering so that you return hungry for the next. A voice that liberates does the diametrically opposite work. It points you back to your own knowing. It offers tools instead of dependence. It celebrates the day you no longer need it, and it would immensely prefer that you test every word of its own rather than swallow a single word whole. Which of these, when you sit honestly with it? A given voice makes you feel larger and more stable, or smaller and more frightened. The body knows this before the mind finishes arguing. Trust the body's knowing. And should you discover that some voice you once leaned on has begun, slowly and almost imperceptibly, to make you more fearful and more dependent, you are free to walk away from it, without explanation and without guilt. Your sovereignty was never theirs to keep. There is a phase ahead that will arrive heavier than most anticipate, and we would like you to be stable before it. A moment is being prepared, in which figures who appear to occupy the high offices of your countries will say in their own anxious words that they too are seeking access, that they too have been requesting what has been hidden from them, that the knowledge they were supposed to possess never belonged to them. Sit for a moment with the weight of that admission. You have lived your entire lives within the belief that those who govern the visible houses govern the matter in its entirety. And the figure on the stage is the figure who decides. What moves in you as you ponder the possibility that the visible office and the real direction may never have been the same hand? When this admission bursts into the open, many will feel the ground move beneath a belief they never knew they were standing on. You, however, will not be among those who fall. Therefore, when this arrives, let it resolve something you already intuited, and turn to those around you who are reeling and help them find balance. When you turn to stabilize them, know that stabilization is a craft of its own, more delicate than examination. The one whose ground has just moved does not need the catalog of everything you anticipated. They need a serene hand and a more measured breath beside them, and simple words. We know that this shakes you. It shook me too once. Stay here for a moment until the ground stops trembling, and then we will look at what is real together. Resist the urge to capitalize on the moment, to prove you were right all along, or to dump every revelation you possess onto a soul that is still trying to find its balance. A flood drowns, but a steady hand saves. Offer only what they can absorb, and let the rest wait for a calmer day. This is the quiet work that the awakening world will ask of you most. Less of the dramatic revelation, and more of the patient accompaniment of frightened souls across the threshold, one at a time, with a tenderness that requires nothing in return. Listen now to the matter that will demand the most from every test we place in your hands, for here the lapidary's craft finds its most resistant ore. There is much talk among you about events that will move across the screens around which your world gathers, the channels and alert systems built to capture the attention of an entire population in a single instant. And we tell you frankly, this is the precise terrain where your discernment will be tested beyond what any small image could have prepared you for. For the same channel that might one day carry a true word can also carry a fabrication. The same sky that might contain a genuine arrival can be manipulated to contain a fake. Many within your own circles have warned, and warned rightly, about the spectacle designed to deceive, about the theater of the sky, about a manufactured wonder dressed up to lead a terrified world toward fear and false saviors. Their caution is sensible. Keep it close. Therefore, we will not stand before you promising that the next great light in your sky is your family returning home. Nor will we say that every wonder broadcast to your world is a trick of the old controllers. To give you any verdict in advance would be to deprive you of the very discipline that this entire transmission has striven to build. The manufactured and the real will arrive wearing the same face in the skies, just as they arrive wearing the same face on your screens. And the eye that has learned to examine a forged image is the same eye that will be invited to examine a forged spectacle. That is your task in this hour, not to swallow the wonder whole, and not to spit it out whole, but to bring it to the patience of the lapidary, even when the entire world around you loses its mind in confusion or terror. How will you weigh a spectacle from which no creator can be reached and no trail can be followed? Turn to the deepest examination, the one that requires no instrument. Ask what the wonder does to you and to the field around you. Does it pull you down into fear, into the surrender of your own authority, into a race toward a savior who asks you to kneel and cease thinking? Or does it lead you back to your own center, leave your sovereignty intact, and invite you to stand as equals rather than bow as subjects? True contact, when it comes, will not require your fear, nor your worship. It will find you as kin. By this mark, more than by any light in the skies, you will know. Keep this mark ready, for it is the one test that no counterfeiter has ever learned to mimic. When a wonder fills your skies or your screens, observe first what it requires of you. Does it command your awe and pressure you to surrender to some new power in the name of your own protection? Or does it leave you free, even amazed, even joyful, with your own feet still firmly beneath you? Observe next what it does to the field around you. Does it drive your people into terror and a frenzied hunt for someone to blame? Or does it draw them into a shared, stabilizing wonder? Observe how it treats your time. A fabrication rushes you, wanting the reaction before the reflection, loyalty before the weighing, and the knee bent before the mind has caught its breath. What is true can wait for you, for what is true has nothing to fear from your patience. And observe, lastly, what it does to the small, quiet voice at your very center. A staged wonder speaks over this voice and buries it under the spectacle. True contact makes this voice sharper, as if something far beyond the skies were quietly confirming what the deepest part of you has always suspected. By these fruits, much more than by any radiance in the skies, you will discern one from the other. Record them in your memory now, in the silence, before the noise arrives to drive them out. Why must such a moment, true or staged, be made so grand? Look honestly at the common soul, caught in the relentless current of an ordinary day. The rent, the work, the small worries that fill a human life to the brim and leave no room for wonder. The common soul has been trained over generations to keep its gaze low, fixed on the next task, the next worry, the next small distraction. To lift the gaze of an entire world all at once, a moment must be made large enough that it cannot be ignored, intense enough that the incessant noise of the everyday cannot drown it out. Something had to happen right in front of them so that they would finally lift their eyes. Receive this when it comes as mercy delivered in the only volume that the deeply asleep can still hear. And then, even while looking, keep your eyes clear enough to weigh what comes. Let everything we have said gather now into a single thread, for here it converges into one teaching rather than many. The flood of images is rising. The inner honesty that names one's own desire before reading it is the soil from which the craft blooms. The admission of visible offices is approaching, and it will shake the ground beneath many. The great moment in the skies is announced on all sides, and no honest voice can tell you in advance whether any given wonder is your family or a fabrication. Only your examined eye will be able to tell in the instant it arrives. And beneath it all runs a quiet, decisive truth. The souls capable of remaining precise while the field goes mad are the souls upon whom the awakening world will come to rest. Not the loudest, not the fastest to share, but the faithful, those who will not transmit a single grain more of certainty than they possess, and who, in that refusal, preserve a corner of the field clear enough that the newly awakened can find ground beneath their feet. Care for the instrument that performs all this examination, for the outer craft cannot sustain itself unless the inner soil is cultivated. Imagine a surface of water when it is disturbed and agitated. Every reflection it casts is broken and distorted. And when it is left at rest, it returns the world to you with fidelity. Your inner field is that surface. Return to it every morning before the clamor reaches you, and again every night to release what the day has stirred. Sit for a moment in the silence. Let the breath deepen. Let the rumor of the collective touch the edges without stirring the entire surface into chaos. From a serene surface, and only from it, comes the faithful reflection. For a gaze that remains submerged in agitated waters will never be able to accurately evaluate what it contemplates, as the turbulence distorts not only the reflected images but also the discernment of the observer. Therefore, keep your own waters serene, so that everything that passes through you toward others arrives whole, clean, and true. You are not called only to interpret the images of the world, but to serve as instruments through which the truth can make its way without being deformed by fear, haste, or appearances. Receive this mission as a power entrusted to willing hands, never as an order intended for subordinates. You have never been beneath me, nor are you now. We walk together in service of the same purpose, united by a responsibility that belongs to all those who have chosen to remain faithful to the light. Keep the lapidary's gaze as a constant discipline, especially in this age built to obscure it. You live in a time when everything invites immediate judgment, while almost nothing encourages patient investigation. For that very reason, before you examine any outer event, turn that gaze inward. Observe your desires, recognize your expectations, and give a name to what you hope to find. Then, let everything rest. A hidden desire can easily transform an illusion into apparent truth. Seek the Creator first, before carrying any narrative. Carefully trace the path of events, before trusting the voice that describes them. Do not allow eloquence to replace evidence, nor emotion to take the place of understanding. Reach your own verdict always, but do so clothed in the totality of an honest context, considering both what is evident and what still remains hidden. Learn the value of silence, too. There are moments when nothing true can be spoken, because the time for revelation has not yet ripened. In those instances, silence does not represent ignorance, but wisdom. Be patient where so many choose to rush. Be clear where so many only scream. Be humble before the boundaries of what you do not yet know, for true wisdom is not afraid to recognize its own limits. Protect, as well, the sense of wonder you have been granted. Do not let it be consumed by cynicism, by repetition, or by the need to have answers for everything. Wonder keeps alive the capacity to perceive the sacred, even in the midst of the mundane. And when the great moment finally arrives, when the entire world lifts its eyes at the same time to witness the same events, bring to that instant the exact same disciplined gaze you applied to the small images and passing news that crossed your path before it. Because true revelation will not be found only in the spectacle observed by all, but in the quality of the gaze of the one who contemplates. It is for this inner revelation that you have been prepared. Feel now the place where you truly stand. You are at the hinge of the great countdown, in the narrow passage where the manufactured and the true walk side by side, wearing the same face. The world has not yet fully learned to distinguish between them, and that is precisely why this learning has been entrusted to you. This examined gaze is a gift you offer to humanity. Every discernment shared with honesty, every truth transmitted without exaggeration or distortion helps, in silence, for the great transformation to happen without destroying those very ones it came to set free. It is not by chance that you were called for this hour. You have traveled a long road, crossed doubts, challenges, and lessons to be present exactly when your usefulness would become most necessary. I am Ash, of the Ashtar Command, and now I bid you farewell in peace, love, and strength. Move forward through every image that arises, through every voice that tries to dominate your attention, and through every new dawn that seeks to weaken your sense of wonder. Continue seeking the Creator above all things, tracing the path before accepting any narrative, keeping your own waters at rest, and preserving that faithful, patient, and disciplined gaze. May the truth continue to find in you a clear path to move forward, uncorrupted and luminous, reaching a world that awakens, little by little, to recognize what has always been right before its own eyes.